Hello there and welcome back to the So You Picked series, Job Edition, where we look into your toolkit up to level 60, how and where to get your job stone, and a look at your starter job gauge. Now today we're going to be looking at the Bard. Still a DPS, but it has more of a support based ethic to it, and they will be using their songs to boost the group's damage with no karaoke involved. Well, unless you want to. So Rin, you ready to get started? Alright then, let's just jump straight in. So, before we jump into unlocking Bard, we are going to have a quick look at the rest of the archer skills up to level 30. Now first off, at level 18 you will get Quick Knock, and that is your first AoE ability for Bard, or for Archer. Now that will deliver an attack with a potency of 150 to all enemies in a cone before you, so as the in a cone directly in front of you, you being the narrow point, and it'll spread out to the wide part of the cone. Nice easy stuff. Use it in situations where you have more than 3 enemies being fought at the same time. Nice and easy. Now next up, at level 30, you will get Wind Bite, which is your second damage over time ability. Now that will deal initial damage with a potency of 60, and will apply a damage over time with a potency of 40 every tick, and that will last for 30 seconds, much like Venomous Bite. So we'd use those pretty much straight after each other, just to keep the timers reasonably correct, so you can reapply them at the same time. And then lastly, at level 38, you will get access to Barrage, which will triple the number of strikes for a single target weapon skill. It will last for 10 the buff will last for 10 seconds, and it has an additional effect that will immediately grant Straight Shot ready. So you would pair Barrage with Straight Shot to get the most damage out of it. So now we're caught up with the Archer skills. Your level 30 rotation doesn't really change that much, just add in Wind Bite at the same time as Venomous, straight after, to keep those in line with each other so you can reapply them at the same time. And then just continue doing what you've been doing so far. Fishing for Straight Shot ready abilities and using Bloodletter whenever it's available. So as for AoE stuff in dungeons, I try to apply my dots to as many enemies as I can while the tank is pulling with the group, and then getting settled in. Then once they're all settled, we will then spam some Quick Knock if the enemy group is larger than 3. If it's not larger than 3, you will stick with the single target rotation. Now with that being said, it's time to go unlock Bard. So we're going to be heading back into town, and then we'll end up back at the Archers Guild to speak to Lucien. Now, to unlock the job stone, you will need to have done the following things. Firstly, you will need to be level 30 in your starter class, in this case Archer. Secondly, you'll need to be past the main story quest called Self-Management. And lastly, you'll need to have done all the class quests up to level 30, and that last level 30 quest will take you to your job stone giver and ultimately your job stone. In this case, we'll be sent to go and see Jahant over here in South Shroud. Now, finish his quests, and you'll be the proud owner of your new job Bard stone and your first Bard ability. Now, once you have your job stone, you will need to equip it by going down into character menu up here, and then down to the bottom right hand slot called Soul Crystal, and equipping your Sword of the Bard. Now, congratulations. You are now officially a Bard with a Mr. Pop bar. You can either fix it manually by dropping the skills back on, dragging and dropping the skills back on, but to sort it out quickly, I would suggest using these text commands that I'm putting on screen now. Now what those will do is copy your Archer hotbar over to your Bard one, making it nice and simple. Can you enter that into a macro, or you can just type it into the general text chat. It will work both ways. So now this is where we're going to mix it up a little bit, because the Bard songs kind of need a little bit more in-depth explanation. just in general. So we're going to split this next part up into 2 different sections. Well, first we're going to have a look at the part of the level 30 to 60 toolkit, the one that's not tied to the songs, and then we're going to do a whole little mini section on the songs themselves and how they work and how they interact with each other and affect various things. So if you are not interested in the toolkit and you just want to get straight into the songs, jump to this point here. If you're interested in all, just stick around. We're going to jump into it right now. Right, so as I said, we're going to skip the songs and pitch perfect at level 52. We're going to skip them for now. We're going to do them after because they need a little bit more explanation. So toolkit, we are going to jump straight in at level 35. You will get Warden's Pain. Now the Warden's Pain is an ability. It will remove 1 select detrimental effect from yourself or a target party member, so a debuff. If the target is not enfeebled, if you don't have any debuffs, it will generate a barrier which will nullify the target's next detrimental effect suffered. So you can preempt, if you know someone's going to get hit with poison, for example, you can apply that before they get poison and it will stop them getting it. And that buff, that shield buff, will last for 30 seconds. It is very useful. A lot of bards forget that they have it. If you use it fairly often to help out the healer, your healers will love you. So don't forget about it. It is very useful. Please don't forget about it. Now next up, we're going to skip Army's Peon at level 40 and we're going to jump straight into level 45. Reign of Death. Now Reign of Death is a AoE version of Bloodletter. It shares a cooldown timer with Bloodletter. So you can either use Reign of Death or Bloodletter. You have a choice in that matter. Obviously, if you're in AoE situation, you would use Reign of Death instead of Bloodletter, and it is your second, obviously, AoE skill. So you would, in your AoE situation, you'd be using Quick Knock for most of the time, and when using Reign of Death whenever it's available. Now, next up, at level 50, you will get Battle Voice, and that is another ability. It will increase your direct hit rate of all of your nearby party members by 20%. It's quite a good buff. It will last for 20 seconds, but you can only use Battle Voice if you are singing one of the 3 songs. So you should be singing the song pretty much all the time, especially at higher levels. So use Battle Voice whenever it's available. Now next up, we're going to skip Wondrous Minuet and Pitch Perfect. I'm going to jump straight into level 54, Imperial Arrow. Now this is another weapon ability. It's off global cooldown, and it will deliver an attack with a potency of 230. It is quite a strong attack, and you can cast that every 15 seconds. Just mix that in with your Bloodletter. Whenever you've used Bloodletter, use the Imperial Arrow. So next up, at level 56, you will get an ability called Iron Jaws. Now, what that does is, that will deliver an attack with a potency of 100 to your target. However, it has an additional effect as well. If the target is suffering from one of both dots, the dot timer will be reset, which helps you speed up the process. So you can apply the dots once, and if you get good at managing your dot timers, you can just hit Iron Jaws and it will reset the timer, rather than having to reapply your 2 dots. It also means you can use more Imperial Arrows and more of your higher hitting abilities. And then lastly, at level 60, you will get a move called Sidewinder. Now, that will deliver an attack with a potency of 100, and it has an additional effect as well. Similar to Iron Jaws, if your target is affected by Venomous Bite or Wind Bite, your Sidewinder move will get a boost to damage. If you have one of them, it will increase to 200, and if it has both, it will do for 350. Nice easy stuff. Now outside of the songs, your base rotation from 30 to 60 will remain mostly the same. You'll still be applying both Wind Bite and Venomous. You will be fishing for straight shots with Heavy Shot, and you will also be using Imperial Arrow, Bloodletter and Sidewinder whenever possible, and you will end up using Iron Jaws to reset the dot timers when they get low. It's fairly straightforward on the main damage side. Now, what changes things up a bit are your songs, because they will grant the rest of your party a damage buff and you a 20% chance of getting a buff called Repertoire, which has a different effect depending on which song you're singing. Now, each song will last for 30 seconds with an 80-second cooldown, and you will want them up as much as possible. And lastly, the job gauge will change its look to reflect the song that you're singing. So, the first song you will get will be at level 30, and it is called Major's Ballad. Now, what that does for the rest of your group is it will increase their damage dealt by 1%. Now, 1% doesn't seem like a lot, but over the course of a dungeon, it will add up. You, however, will be getting that 20% chance at getting Repertoire from your dots instead of that damage buff. Now, what that does for Major's Ballad is it will reset the cooldown on both Bloodletter and Rain of Death, giving you a good bit of burst damage, especially if you use it in your AoE. If you're in an AoE situation, you would best off popping Major's Ballad and hitting them hard with Rain of Death, because that's a stronger AoE ability than Quick Knock. Just make sure that you have your dots up during this phase, otherwise you will not get Repertoire. Now, the next song you'll get is called Armies Peon at level 40. Now, what that does for your group is it will increase their direct hit rate by 3%. Now, direct hit is kind of like a mini critical, and naturally, the more direct hit rate you have, the more chances of that happening. And what Repertoire does for you with armies up, it will reduce your weapon skill cast time, your spell cast time, and your recast time by 4%, and that will stack up to 4 times. It'll speed up your whole rotation while you're under Armies Peon. And finally, the last song you will get is called Wanderer's Minuet at level 52. And that will grant your group a 2% increase to their critical hit rate, which is a meteor version of the direct hit. And for your Repertoire, it will stack up to 3 times and will also grant you access to Pitch Perfect, which is the other level 52 skill. It is a damage skill. And that has an additional thing where it has increased damage based on how many stacks of Repertoire you have. So, maximum of 3. So you have to try and save. It's worth it to try and save Pitch Perfect for when you get 3 stacks, so it does the most damage. If your song's if Wanderer's Minuet's about to run out though, do not waste your Pitch Perfect. It's still worth doing even at 1 or 2 stacks. So once you've unlocked all 3 songs, it's entirely possible to have a 100% uptime on the damage buffs. And if you manage to pull it off, your group will love you for it. And lastly, the songs do have a priority system based on what buffs you get for the different songs and the situation you find yourself in. So if you are in a single target situation, your song priority will be you would start with Wanderer's Minuet, then jump into Major's Ballad, then into Armies Peon, and then repeat, because by the time your Armies Peon is finished, Wanderer's Minuet will be coming off cooldown or already off cooldown. Now, for AoEs, the priority changes slightly. You would start with Major's Ballad, then go into Armies Peon, then Wanderer's Minuet. Purely because Major's Ballad is better gets you access to Rain of Death more, which is better for AoEs than just spamming quick knock. Right guys, so your level 60 rotation, full speed, it will look something like this. Once you've got it down pat, it is looks quite hectic, and it is tricky to do it at full speed and explain at the same time. So I'm going to split it into two short descriptions. Now these will be done at the same time on top of each other, but essentially it's two kind of mini rotations going on at the same time. First part is your song rotation, and then obviously while your songs are playing, you'll be doing your combat rotation at the same time. So we're going to look at the song rotation first, then we're going to look at the single target rotation second. Hopefully that will help. Hopefully that'll make it a bit easier. So, song-wise, your song rotation will look something like this. So you would hit your Wanderer's Minuet. Obviously make sure you have a target basically selected. And then you'll be doing applying your dots and doing your combat rotation while this is going on, using pitch perfect whenever the 3 arrowheads on the job gauge light up, which they won't do because I'm not generating repertoire. Then when you get to about 5 seconds left, you would swap to Major's Ballad and then just continue doing your single target, reapplying your dots with Iron Jaws. And still, again, wait until you've got about 5 seconds left. Once you hit around about 5, then hit Army's Peon, and then continue doing your single target rotation. You combat what side. Now just repeat that song rotation just for the whole dungeon. Just go cycle all the way through. And again, straight back into Wondrous Minuet. And once you get good at it, once you get some practice going, you can keep that up 100% of the dungeon. Right guys, so once you've got your song rotation stuck in your head, while they're on rotation, keeping track of the timers on your songs, you will also need to be doing your actual physical rotation, which if you've been playing for any length of time, which you should have been by now, which is applying your 2 damage over times. Now follow that up with a Sidewinder for that extra damage. Then you will jump into your Barrage combo, which is Raging Strikes. Then into Barrage, which will pop your Straight Shot, and you would hit them with a 3-barrel Straight Shot there. You would be keeping an eye on your dot timers and using Iron Jaws whenever it's available, whenever they run low. And then you jump into your Imperial combo, which is Bloodletter, Imperial, and then straight into heavy shots to fish for your straight shot procs. And just have fun with that one. There's a lot to take in. There's a lot going on at the same time. Once you've got past your initial starter rotation, then it's just a matter of using stuff as and when it becomes available. So when your Barrage combo becomes available, use that. Whenever Bloodletter and Imperial Arrow become available, use that. Replenish your dots with Iron Jaws. And don't forget to rotate your songs. I'm going to say it's that simple. It does take a lot of practice to get everything down right, because you've got two sets of timers to manage, your songs and your 2 dots. You've got to manage both those timers. You've got to keep track of both of them so you can reapply stuff as and when you need to. So that's been our look into the board and how it works. Now, hopefully my explanation of everything has removed some of the questions you may have had. If you have any more, feel free to ask and I'll answer them as best I can. Now, Rin, thanks again for all your effort in leveling. You're amazing as usual. Now, the next combat guide will be on Dragoon, so please look forward to that. Are you excited for it? Good, good. You've been working hard on Dragoon as well. So, thank you all for watching. If you're new here, feel free to hang out. Come check out some of the stuff we've got going on. Would love to have you here. If you're not new here, thanks for all the support. It is much appreciated, and you all know what's coming. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. And as always, see you on the flip side. Bye bye.